Shane Scully started off a very, very dark character. Darker than probably any hero that I'd ever written before, and that was for a very specific reason. When I wrote the first novel, I wanted to write about the Internal Affairs Division. And Internal Affairs, obviously, is the division, the administrative trial division that basically hears the cases of officers that are charged with everything from spousal abuse to crimes on the street. And I wanted to write about internal affairs, and I had never really been there. I had this preconception of what internal affairs was all about, and it was sort of a preconception that was brought to me by movies and television. They were the rat squad, the shoe flies, the cops who hate other cops. And so I went down there and I found something completely different. It wasn't that at all. They were the upward risers in the department. They were the smartest. They were there's a culture in the LAPD that if you aren't in internal affairs, you can't move into administration. It's sort of like the path to administration. So all the really bright, some of them were going to law school. They were really not what I expected at all. They weren't the beer-drinking, angry cops who hated other cops. And I spent about 2 months down there, going there almost every afternoon, sitting in on the hearings. And I began to form this novel and this character that I wanted to write about for this standalone book. I didn't think I was going to write another Shane Scully. Shane Scully was my protagonist in the book. And I wanted him to be charged with a murder that he didn't commit and being tried by the Internal Affairs Division, most probably going to end up being tried by the district attorney as well for second-degree murder. And as he's going through this trial, he meets the advocate who is the prosecutor that is prosecuting him, and that ends up being Alexa, who eventually he marries in the third novel. And what was wonderful about Alexis and Shane's relationship was that she was prosecuting him during the day, but she was the only one that believed that some of the stuff that he was finding out about why he had been framed, and it involved corrupt police, was actually true. And so during the day she was working with him to try and solve that case, or during the night she was working with him to try and solve that case, and in the daytime, she was prosecuting him in internal affairs. So it made for a really interesting push-pull relationship. So in order to have that character, I needed him to be very dark, very lonely, and I knew that he was going to discover that he had a son, and that falling in love with Alexa and finding that he had a love child that he didn't know about that's now a 15-year-old, half-Hispanic boy who's angry and joining a gang in the valley. All of these things start to become part of his life and change who he is. And so he was kind of reversed engineered in that first novel. I was writing a guy that was dark and lonely and unhappy in a strange way, so that I could bring him out the other end of the tunnel of that first book as a different kind of guy who was seeing life in a different way, because I like to take characters on a journey, start them in one place and have them end somewhere else.